Welcome to Strategy Execution Unlocked and the fifth episode in our Practitioners Unfiltered series. In this series, we sit down with the founding members of the Strategy Execution Forum, practitioners spanning diverse roles, functions, and industries, all united by a common mission, helping their organizations to effectively bridge the gap between strategy and execution. Through these candid, unfiltered conversations, we explore real-world challenges these leaders face and the innovative solutions they're implementing to master both the art and science of strategy execution. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Juan Jose. Juan Jose is a seasoned C-level executive with 26 years of experience at the highest levels of strategy and capital deployment. He's built a distinguished career driving sustainable growth and large-scale transformations across energy, financial services, FMCG, and the government sectors. He specializes in the critical intersection of enterprise strategy, disciplined capital allocation, and flawless execution, often acting as a trusted strategic advisor to CEOs, boards, and investment committees. He is also a council and founding member of the Strategy Execution Forum and is helping us build the community to elevate strategy execution into a true C-suite imperative. JJ, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ben, for your invitation. Thank you for this conversation. I am very thrilled to be with you and to talk about many, many interesting topics.
No, I'm certainly looking forward to this one. Most of the times when we kick this off, I always like to start off with the question is, what does strategy execution mean to you? Because based on your different roles and vantage points, it can mean different things to different people. So what does strategy execution mean to you?
Yeah, many thanks for the question. Strategy execution is, as you mentioned, it's an art and a science. It's how can we, as strategy execution practitioners, help organizations, mainly CEOs and the C levels, to deploy strategy through the organization. And in my experience, I would tell you that it's about how you deploy, how you use several methodologies, frameworks, tools. How do you make these recipes, let's say it's like a recipe, to really create value in an organization? All organizations have a vision, have a strategic plan, but many fail on how to implement it. It's not about the what, it's about the how, and that's the main focus of the key issues of strategy execution.
That makes sense. Makes sense. So, from your experience, what's the real role of the CEO in ensuring that strategy actually gets executed and delivers value?
Well, yeah, as I have talked with you and even with my fellow peers, the CEO role is really, really important. First of all, he defines that strategic vision. But not only is that part, he also has to ensure that strategy becomes an operational reality. Breakthrough CEOs I have seen, I have worked with, are the ones that really understand that in order to really fulfill, to really create value in the organization, it's through the people. So value is created when the CEO actively connects three elements. One is strategic priorities, the vision, the strategic plan, resource allocation, because the CEO and his C-level team have to decide, have to make strategic choices of where they are going to invest, where are they going to put their money, and also the organizational behavior. And that's where I think that strategy execution it's core, because you can have the money, you can have the correct allocation of the resources in strategic initiatives, in strategic processes, but the main thing is how do you mobilize the workforce? How do you mobilize all your collaborators? And the big question is, what kind of organizational behavior do we want to have in order to realize that long-term vision?
So, a lot of times at the forum, we've been talking about how do we elevate strategy execution to become a C-suite imperative? Because one of the things we've identified is that maybe the C-suite don't understand necessarily what strategy execution is. There's not a clear definition of that, and they maybe don't understand the impact of suboptimal strategy execution. In fact, that it's impacting them from a value realization point of view, whether value is being lost or value is being deferred or delayed. In your experience, do you think the C-suite do understand the implications of suboptimal strategy execution capabilities?
Yes and no. And it's very interesting the answer. Yes, because at the C suite, we always are talking about the financials. What are the reports? What are the results? Did we create or did we not create value? Are we achieving the quarter expected goal or not? And I would say that in general terms, obviously in a C-suite team, you have different capabilities of the people. Some of them are very analytical and quantitative, financial. Others are on the opposite. But in general terms, they always talk about the financials. However, for me and from my experience, every report, every balance sheet, every cash flow statement tells a story. Yeah. And that story, it's about how you create value in the organization. And that's where many times the C-suite gets lost. Yeah, because we always are reporting something, but we are not analyzing and questioning why and how did we get there. And that's where the strategy execution imperative is. We have to understand that every number in the organization, even if it's a balance sheet or a cash flow statement or a KPI, every number in the organization tells a story. And that story is how we create value. And sometimes, or many times, the C suite gets lost in translation, trying to understand, or maybe they do not understand how really we are creating value. So it is very important for me, for my in the projects that I have worked with, um, to make understand that to the C-suite that in order to change the balance sheet, it is very important to understand what people, what processes, what projects are linked, and how can we mobilize all that information.
That makes sense. And we talk about it again in the forum, the need to get a C-suite commitment in terms of developing the organization's strategy execution capability or strategy execution muscle. And I'm sure we'll talk more about what that entails from an operating model point of view during this episode. But do you think there's a specific owner of the C-suite that needs to take responsibility for that? Is it the CEO? Is it the COO? Is it the CFO? Or does it?
Yeah, it matters, and there has to be a responsible. We always create what we call the Strategy Management Office, SMO, in all business knowledge and business language. And in the practice, we are talking about the CTO, Chief Transformational Officer. And we have to have one person responsible for orchestrating all the efforts for strategy execution. What does this mean? It means that we have to have this person that not only is in charge of helping and developing or leading the strategic plan for the organization, but also he has to or she has to understand how to deploy that strategy inside and outside the organization. Also, he has or she has to have this link and collaboration very strongly with the financial part of the organization, with the human capital of the organization, with the technology part of the organization, because they they have to organize and to coordinate all the enablers for the organization to execute processes and projects perfectly. He has to be also very close to the CEO. I always say that the SMO, the Strategy Management Officer, becomes the ears and the eyes of the CEO. I also say that he has to play the role of good cop and bad cop. Good cop because he has to orchestrate and to help all the organization to focus on achieving the strategic objectives, level one, level two, level three. He has to help human resources to align perfectly the job descriptions of the people according to the processes and according to the specific strategic objectives they contribute. So you have this person that has to have the good cop hat or side in one time of the organization, and then you have to have this bad cop when you have to understand the performance of the organization. You have to analyze the performance. You have to question why production or sales or marketing are not achieving their goals, are not monetizing the efforts that are supposed to do. So you have to have this ability to play the bad cop in a good way, yeah, because you have to be positive about it. You have to give them options, solutions, recommendations, and you have to motivate them mainly to keep the good work, yeah, because we have to focus all the efforts of the organization to the strategic plan and to fulfill the annual or 3 year or 5 year strategic plan. So yes, there has to be a responsible, an area responsible, depends of the size of the organization, but it's always about collaborating. It's always about having a positive attitude towards performance. How can we help the organization to achieve those goals? And mainly give all the information objectively and honestly to the CEO to make decisions. It's about decision making many times. So yeah, definitely a big part of the strategy execution effort is to have a C-level responsible for orchestrating all these efforts.
No, you raise a great point because we want C-suite commitment. So even if there's one person that's responsible, whether that's as you say, a leader of a strategy management office or a strategy execution office or a transformation management office, the name's not necessarily important. It's more the mindset of that individual and that office. But it's also critical that all other members of the C-suite are bought in too, right? Rather than trying to kind of, you know, give it lip service or whatever. And you raise a good point around the role of that strategy management office or strategy execution office to really be there to help translate strategic intent into actual items and value, but also as that kind of strategy execution architect, that coordinator of all the different roles and functions that need to come together, right, to successfully deliver an organization strategy. Because at the forum, we say all the time, right, it takes a village to master strategy execution. And it's
Yeah.
critical to bring all the key functions together that are often operating in silos, and optimizing their own, piece of the puzzle, which leads to a fractured operating model, which often loses and defers or delays value. How should leaders think about strategy execution as a value generating process rather than just a planning exercise?
Well, I think I love that question, Ben, because I think that's the key differentiator. CEOs, the C level team, they have to understand that they are they are at the C level for one purpose, and that's value creation. Value creation, it's a process, it's not a result, it's a process. And they have to understand that that process has many variables, that obviously it's the product or the service I sell. How do I approach the consumer or the client? What are my key processes that are delivering that product or that service? And in order to execute excellently those processes, what is the technology? What is the team, the capabilities, the internal capabilities that I have to develop? And value creation, it's the sum of all the parts of the organization. It's not about only achieving certain level of sales revenue or gross margin or operating margin or net margin. Yeah, it is. And it's also the financial part of how is your cash flow, how is how are you translating all that those activities of the organization into cash. Is your financial part healthy? Yeah, that's one part. But how do we get there? It's the important framework of how the C-suite must understand. I have applied many times in my work experience the strategy maps concept and the balance scorecards concept. And from those two, the strategy map really helps the C level to have in one page describing all the processes, the key processes, or the key objectives mainly, that are needed to create value. So when you create this strategy map with all the C level team, you can see and you can identify that everybody is working in silos. They are working towards the same goal, but with a different set of mind. And when we can break that silo, when we can break that framework, traditional framework, mental framework, and they understand that they have to work together, they have to break silos, they have to have transversal processes, that they know where are the bottlenecks, then the magic starts to happen in value creation. So, yes, I think that are two different things. We have to understand what is value, what is the value that we want to create, and then also answer the question what are the hows, what are the actions, the projects, the processes, the responsibilities that we have to take on to achieve that desired value creation point. And from A to B, you are going to be creating in a process. Everything in life is a process. So you will be creating and managing a lot of things transversally, vertically, and that's how we create value on the organization. And that's why it's very important to have a person, a responsible, that can be like this great orchestrator trying to uh, coordinate all those efforts.
No, I like that. I mean, you're right. It's at the end of the day, it's all about value realization, right? And
That's
going
right.
back to my earlier question in terms of, you know, do you think the C-suite understand the criticality or the impact of suboptimal strategy execution? At the end of the day, it is about value being lost and deferred, and building that muscle really is ensuring that all functions in the organization are aligned, and you're, building a cohesive operating model to plug those leaks and maximize the throughput of value and accelerate value. And I think, as you said, that requires all aspects of the business. It's not just about program execution and executing a great strategic initiatives, deliver the next groundbreaking breaking product or service. It's also about ensuring the operational activity and spend is optimized and fully aligned with the strategy, giving you the right target state to execute effectively, right? So it really is that holistic view of that business and the development of that muscle of your organization to execute on strategy. And that's why I think it's, you know, a lot of the C-suite who are focused on setting the right direction are not necessarily experts in the underlying engine room or the plumbing of the organization to make sure that you're proactively identifying or forensically assessing where the value is being lost or delayed and looking to optimize that through a cohesive operating model that unites the village of an organization.
I love your analogies. I love your analogies of the plumbing, and that's yeah. I think that the strategy management officer is like a plumber. I like it. I like it. Yeah, because it's about how you develop that muscle. I also love that analogy, and it's about building that muscle that gives you the leverage to achieve and the strength to achieve those great objectives that are set in the strategic plan. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, probably leading on a little bit from what we were just talking about, I heard you talk a lot about the value gap, right, within
Yeah.
organizations. And what is it, a value gap, and how can leaders do a better job in identifying it?
Okay. The concept of the value gap is we have to start with a baseline. Let's say that right now our value creation is worth $10 million. And we set up a strategy. We made a strategic plan for 5, 10 years of transformation. And for the first 5 years and for the long term 10 years, we have to set stuff at assumptions and forecast what will be our next level of value creation. So if we are at 10 million, in 5 years we want 100 million, and in 10 years it will be worth 1 billion. The first value gap in the 5 years time, it's, well, we said 100 million minus 10 million, 90 million. So $90 million or euros or pesos, it's the value gap. So once we know that our first state is this level and we want to achieve this level, that gap has to come from somewhere. We have to sell more. We have to be more efficient in our cost structure. We have to develop employee capabilities. We have to work on our culture. We have to expand our market. We have to open new operations in new countries or in new states. So all those actions are going to be the ones that are going to take us from 10 million to 100 million. Yeah. And we have to set and quantify when and how are we going to get there. If the organization does that, the organization, I always say that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The organization always will be achieving what they set to do. Always. It's very hard not to do it because you are focusing all the efforts on that value creation first step. Okay. So when you and I talk about the value gap and the value at risk of strategy, is from one side of the coin is okay, the value gap is 90 million. On the other side is what happens if you don't realize that? Well, you are losing 90 million. So my value at risk is not doing this 90 million. Yeah. So it's it's understanding at the C level that we have to forecast our value creating process. How much do we want to achieve in 1, 2, 3, 5 years? But also, it's very important to align resource allocation, financial and non financial resource allocation, to deliver those small steps year by year in order to achieve that midterm or long-term target. So it's very important that we have to make a financial forecast, basically. But after the financial forecast is how are we going to get to that point in year one? Okay, so in year one, are we going to increase 20 million? Okay, from where are we going to get those 20 million? From sales, from a better cost structure, from that's where the C suite they have to understand that it's a teamwork. It's not about only selling more and better. It's about everything. Are we reaching the right customer, the long term customer? Are we influencing their behaviors, their decision making behaviors for purchasing our product or service? So it's about always for me. It's always about the how. How are we going to do it? Because we can create a financial forecast very easily with a lot of assumptions. But the most important part is how are we going to do it? How are we going to commit ourselves? How are we going to fund, invest in those projects or capabilities, right? So that's the match between where do I want to where do I want to go, yeah, and how much it's going to cost. How much are we going to create value? And all the C suite have to understand that. And I stress, not all the C suite are financial guys. So we have to make a common understanding and a common commitment at the C suite level so they can commit to short, mid, and long term objectives of value creation.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, just to paraphrase a little bit, I think you talked about strategy maps earlier, right? The first thing is to ensure that strategy is clearly defined and communicated across the organization, which means that the functions need to decompose that, interpret that, and obviously there'd be the metrics set around those strategies that align to the overall that you just mentioned, right? So there's that, which I think this is done very badly in most organizations today, how you take the high level goals and truly decompose them and communicate them across the organization so that everyone from mid-level managers to frontline workers understand their role in achieving the goals. The next thing is, I think you were saying, is more around really breaking that down and understanding the strategic roadmap, the activities that need to occur to achieve that, right? And as we know, I like to say this quote from Mike Tyson, right? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. The reality is, whatever your plan is normally useless because whether that is internal or external variables that often change. So we need to ensure that there is agility in the business in terms of decision making to adjust as that plan doesn't unfold as we first expected, right? So, I mean, what's your thought in terms of that strategy decomposition and the importance of that and clear communication across the organization?
Well, that's, and I want to link that this answer, your question, to the one with who is responsible of managing strategy. It's very important for the strategy manager officer to deploy many tools in order to execute strategy. One of them is cascading. How and where are we going to cascade the strategic objectives of the organization? The organization, it's very different if you are a small organization, medium enterprise, or a corporate with different operations around the globe. So it's very different how you must or should deploy strategic objectives. That's one tool. Cascading. Well, a process. Cascading. The process of cascading. The tools are strategic objectives, KPIs, OKRs, blah, blah, blah. The other part, and that's, I would say that it's the hard part. If you have all these tools, objective and quantitative tools. You can cascade, you can deploy, you should deploy the strategy through the organization. But there are the soft part of strategy execution, and it's culture, it's communication, it's engagement, it's people. At the end, I would say, my dear Ben, that the science and art of strategy execution is the science and art of mobilizing people. Many times I have been with the C level teams and I question them. I tell them, do you want to make more money? Do you want to create value? Yes. Yes, JJ. They look at me like, what kind of question is that? Yeah, but if you want to increase by 10 times, 5 times your value creation level, what do you have to do? What do you have to manage? The P&L, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, the cash flow? No. Behind every single number, there are processes, and who make or execute the processes is people. So, if you want to change your profit and loss results, change the people. And they look at me like, what? Are you telling us to dismiss everybody? No, 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 no. No. You have to engage with the people. The people have to believe in you. They have to believe and live the vision. They have to understand the values of the organization. They have to align their personal values to the organizational values. They have to tattoo themselves the mission and the vision and the purpose of the organization. And when that happens, because I have seen it, that happens, magic happens. Processes are better, are more efficient. Continuous improvement is a way of living. It's not a punisher area or process. So communication, it's a key part of engaging with our collaborators, with the workforce. It's very important to be repeating and again and again and again and again, where are we going, what we are expecting about our people, how can we help them to be better persons, not only at the business level but also in the personal level. Because when we engage with the people in a personal level, all the all the doors start to open and the behaviors start to change, and the behaviors reflect on daily activities, and daily activities reflect on processes, and processes reflect on the area of the organization, and the area reflects on the reporting part of the financials of the enterprise. So it's very important for a strategy manager officer, for the CEO to understand that it's not about the industry, it's not about the organization, it's not about the location of the organization, it's about the people. So there are many business cases and beautiful stories of great companies that are medium, small, they become bigger, big corporates that are really successful, creating value, understanding that the key ingredient, the critical success factor is the people.
Yeah, it's that village then, right? So how do you get everyone committed and motivated to achieving the goals and understanding how their function can contribute? As you rightly say, we talk about the art and the science. The science being, any framework methodology we use to break down and solve different parts of the problem. But the human dimension is the art, and if you don't, as people say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Another
Yeah.
well-known phrase, right? So, but at the end of the day, also most of us are kind of coin operated, right? So, what do you think the role is of HR in terms of ensuring that the incentive model of the individuals is aligned back to the actual metrics and strategies of the organization? Because I sometimes see well, not sometimes, always see a disconnect there as well, right?
There's always a disconnect. Every time that I set a foot on an organization and we talk with the human resource area, there's always a disconnection between the the job description, what the people or the person actually do, and also with their compensation package. The manager officer is not the CHRO. That's the job of the CHRO. But he has to help him. The SMO has to help or contribute or work with the CHRO to align the workforce. How do they do that? They have to align, well, first identify which are the key strategic objectives, and then align it to the processes and to the people, and identify those critical persons. Once we have identified those critical persons with a view of strategic priorities, we have to align their job descriptions. We have to analyze how do we have to compensate them, if the compensation package right now it's okay, or we can set up certain um, rewards, non-monetary or monetary rewards aligned to strategy execution, and that kind of discussions, that process of HR alignment have to be done between the strategic management officer and the CHRO. It has to be done one to one. It cannot be done only by the CHRO because he will try to make his best effort, and maybe he's directing the workforce this way, but actually the organization needs the workforce to go that way. So it is very important for the organization that the responsible of strategy execution, whatever it is called, works with the human resource responsible at the C level to align and to communicate also, because it's not only about job descriptions and rewards, and no, it's also about how, where, and how and what are we going to communicate to the organization, because the people is going to receive certain messages, and depending on the message they are going to process it in their minds, and they are going to react. So it is very important always to have that collaboration and that alignment between the strategic management officer and the chief HR officer.
That makes sense. So maybe to wrap this up, when you think about CEOs, how should they balance the risk and value creation, especially in times of uncertainty or transformation?
Well, this is wow. We could talk about this in another podcast, but yes, it's very important and very nowadays very imperative that not only the CEO but also the C level team understand that strategy is under uncertainty every day. So there are many tools for strategic planning, but I think that nowadays scenario planning is the cherry on the pie. We have at the C level, there has to be a consensus of, first of all, yes, we want to go from point A to point B, but given that every day is happening something in the Middle East, something in Europe, something in Asia, something in Latin America, everything is so interconnected now that there are implications, affectations to the performance of the organization. So we have to make a consensus of what are the key variables that might impact our performance, our will affect our performance in the value creation process. Yeah. Once we have those variables identified and we are all everybody is in the same page, I think that the best not solution but the best tools that we can have to make good decisions is scenario planning and different forecasts for each scenario. And all this might sound very financial and quantitative. It is, but the most important part is to have all the information to make the best decision at the best time, given that the uncertainty level it's always rising. Yeah. And when the level of uncertainty rises, that implies that our expected value creation level might or might not be affected. So it is very important that we can have certain tools and information, up to date information, to make good decisions and to minimize the impact in the value creation process. It's directly to them.
No, that's great, Joji. So, listen, I don't want to keep you any longer. I really appreciate your time today. I know we're going to most likely get many opportunities to dive deeper into different subjects over the course of the time we spend together in the forum. But again, thank you for your time today, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Thank you, my dear friend Ben. I appreciate the opportunity and invitation. I hope that my insights are well received, and we will be working a lot in the in the near future. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, JJ.